Hello, everyone. This is W, host of the High Art on the Edge page. Today's event is called Simon Says Vinyl, episode number 9. Simon Leclerc, DKFM DJ extraordinaire, shares his vinyl picks. You will be entertained and educated. Trust me. Enjoy the discussion. Hello, everyone. This is W, host of the High Art on the Edge page. Today, Sunday, January 28th. Happy New Year to you all, 2024. We have reinvigorated, renewed our love for vinyl. And how have we done that? We are starting up again with a show that I greatly love called Simon Says Vinyl. Who else better to bring in than Simon Leclerc, wonderful DJ from DKFM, who has his own show, Mr. Melomania Safety Zone. And if you've never checked out these shows, what he's going to do is he's going to share some of his vinyl picks that he recommends to you all. And then this will be a chance for you to comment in the comment box if you've heard of these albums, bands, anything you want to share. So that's kind of how the lay of the land works. Let's bring him in. Simon Leclerc, welcome.
Hey, it's great to see you, W. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so much. I'm quite excited because this has been we took a 2 to 3 month hiatus.
Yeah, it was something I think the last one we did maybe was in October, maybe. Yeah.
And we did sneak in a little tribute to Slow Dive, which was wonderful.
We did do that. So I think that counts in the canon of our repertoire of experiences together.
So just if you wouldn't mind giving the viewer, the listener, a little background on who you are and how your love for vinyl music came about, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I've been collecting vinyl since the 90s. I couldn't tell you when, just bits and pieces here and there. Of course, back in the 90s, CDs were easier to get and sort of more there. And so I grabbed a lot of CDs back then too. And in terms of my passion and love for music, it's something that's always been with me. And so I traveled a lot growing up, and music was always my constant, always following me around the world with my Walkman, my Discman, my cassettes, whatever I had, that's the way I traveled. And it was always my best friend. And so with that, I got into vinyl and just kept building and traveling and building and packing up vinyl and moving again. And now I've been kind of stationary for a while here in Toronto, Canada, and that allowed my collection to really blossom, which my wife, I'm sure, really loves and appreciates how much space my vinyl takes up in our. She's really cool about
Jack White has talked about his love for vinyl, and what it really comes down to is the experience of the music. Would you say that applies for your passion and love for vinyl as well?
It's partially the tactile nature of it. I like the feel. I being a therapist, as you know now, the whole mindful experience of even having vinyl and smelling it and feeling it and touching it and hearing it really activates so many senses and the warm quality it has to it. There's just something real. I find that when I am able to get something that I love on vinyl, it just resonates that much more with me and end up liking it that much more than just having a digital file on my computer. And so it really, that tactile quality has something for me that really elevates it.
Do you still get to record stores?
I do, not as often as I'd like. I end up ordering a lot of stuff online here and there from record labels or from Norman Records over in the UK. I find quite helpful as well for getting records through Bandcamp, through certain artists that I can buy stuff through directly. And so I go to record stores every couple of months, perhaps, because I there's something nice about this action and this feeling of going through records. I find it really meditative. And so occasionally I wish I could do it more, but that's life.
I've never asked you this question. In some record stores, they have kind of the Holy Grail albums on the back wall, where sometimes you have to ask, hey, can I see the Holy Grail? And they'll take you to the back room. Have you ever purchased a Holy Grail album?
Oh boy. I don't think that I have. I'm more of a buried treasure hunter. So I almost like to find the records that the store doesn't realize are gems in their stacks in their used section, because the stuff that's on the back wall is always going to be priced a little bit higher than everything else. And so I'm kind of looking more for that. And the things that are on that back wall tend to be more, the stores that I've been to are more like classic of certain things, whereas I'm more direct within certain subgenres. And so those things wouldn't necessarily make the back wall. As you'll see from the things that I picked for today, it's stuff that's not back wall, but is sort of gemmy and sort of buried treasury.
You also host a radio show for DKFM. Do you want to let the audience know about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I've been doing Melomania Safety Zone for way, so basically pandemic and beyond. So I think it's been 3 years maybe now. I got to check that. It might be 3 or 4 years that I've been doing Melomania Safety Zone, which started off on a pirate radio station from the East Coast out in Halifax called Nowhere FM, and then migrated over to DKFM shortly thereafter. And so love doing the show. It's every 2 weeks, Thursday night, 7 p.m. West Coast time for you and 10 p.m. for me here in Toronto, East Coast time. And love it. It just keeps me engaged and involved in music. And I love it because artists also reach out to me to chat about music and to give their stuff that they're working on. And I try to integrate a blend of things. And I love making playlists. I loved making mixtapes and mix CDs back in the day. And this is just another variation or form of that I really, really enjoy.
The idea of supporting artists through your radio program, I love it. And some of the shows that I've listened to and participated with other members of the community, it's been fun to watch new people arrive and then some of the regulars there um, with all their, you know, insightful, witty comments. And it's a really good experience. So I highly recommend it for people to participate. So for today's vinyl picks, do you have a theme in mind, or you just kind of just picked here a little bit here and there?
It's funny because when we set up to do these shows, I wait until like an hour or two before the show, and I go, "What am I feeling? What is resonating with me right now?" And then I just go and I pick records. I look at the stacks. I flip through for a while. It gives me a chance to touch and feel and smell, like I was talking about before. And then whatever resonates with me, I'll pull off. And I wanted to have a few records represented from my best of from 2023 as well that I haven't presented on the show yet. And so I picked some that I hadn't talked about before to sort of get us in the swing of thinking about how awesome 2023 was in terms of music, and then a few other gems and different things that I wanted to represent on the show.
Fantastic. Well, let's get started. Why don't you share your or your first pick there?
Yeah, for sure. This one, do you recognize the cover at all from DKFM people? So this is Moa M0AA, and this album's called Jaywalker. It was in my top 5 for albums of the year. Really great album. Jancy Buffington is, I think she's Portland, Oregon, so she's from out that way. Really cool blend of shoegaze and new wave synth pop kind of stuff. Excellent album. She's got 2 records. She's got Euphoric Recall from a couple of years ago as well, and she's got this one. And it's one of those records that you put it on and you're immediately kind of drawn in by especially like the synth hooks. She does a really good job of laying down some solid synth hooks, but it's not overproduced. It's not overly like candy or saturated. It's got like a dark gothy feel to the synth hooks, which I think really, really works. And so that's a strong, big recommendation. Um, Amazing record. So that's Moa, and Jaywalker is the name of the album.
What does the lacquer look like?
The actual record. So this one is a nice colored piece of vinyl. So this is a nice red. Yeah.
Gorgeous. You know, as you pull your next one, I was thinking about how hard it must be for you to draw up your best of albums.
Yeah. I build it throughout the year. And so because I grew up on countdowns. Like, and so there was like the Chum FM countdown here in Toronto and, Much Music countdowns. I was sort of obsessed with sort of those top 30 countdowns back in the 80s and 90s. And so I always made my own countdowns for myself for whatever reason. I can call it like being kind of an only childish. My sister's a lot younger than me. So maybe I was trying to fill my time with activities. But ever since then, I've made those. And so I build them throughout the year. I edit them every couple of months. And at the end of the year, I go, all right, this is my smack of a countdown and present it. And I do my MSZ countdown at the end of every year to represent that.
Great. All right. What's your next one?
So this one, I like to play this game with W. So do you recognize this album cover? So this is from 2023 as well. So this is Bar Italia. Nice. So they came to Toronto a couple of months ago. So I checked them out in Toronto, and it's a good show. It's one of those shows you go to, and how do I put this? I was expecting it to be kids because they're young. Like these are youngsters from the UK. Um, and their sound is very 90s though. It's like gothy post-punk, indie rock, garage rock, and shoegaze kind of all mashed together. And they've got swagger for sure. And so I expect to be like kids who were kind of hip and cool. It was a bunch of there were some of those kids, but there was a lot of dudes that looked like me as well. A lot of gray beards who were kind of reliving their glory through these young 20-year-olds from the UK, man. But this album, so this is Tracy Denham, because they released the Twits as well, which was good but didn't quite grab me in the same way. It was a bit more raw. This I found a bit more accessible for me and had more of an indie rock feel to it. And so yeah, so this is Bar Italia. So good. One of my top records of last year. Really dug it. And when they played Changer live, I lost it. That's a really great track from this album. Ready? I'm gonna go local scene because I want to represent these amazing folks. This is the band Swims, and the album's called Into the Blue Night. And yeah, they're a Toronto band, and they are amazing. I I big them up as much as I can. I've played them on my show a lot. They're that nice combination of sort of like always brand dream pop, jangle pop, shoegaze, indie rock hybrid. Good song structures, like 3 to 4 minute songs with good hooks, good jangle, all the rest of it, with a nice fuzzy layer pervasively throughout. And the vocals are incredible. She does a great job with the vocals too.
Okay. What's your next? So that was Swims. What's your next one?
That was Swims. And so now I'm going to break into an album of 2024 design that is like a rocket ship to start off the year. And so I don't know. Have you seen, yeah, have you seen this kicking around yet? It just came out. Okay, so this is Animal Ghosts. And so it's the new Animal Ghosts record called Swell. And Cliff Barnes is just he's like a shoegaze genius. Like this guy just lives and breathes that kind of classic swirling, almost like on the verge of nauseating sounds kind of shoegaze that just makes your head spin in a wonderful fuzzy wall of sound kind of way. And this record, he just continues the same wonderful, amazing, thick shoegaze sound. And so for folks who love classic shoegaze, especially, this guy's great. And so I ordered this from his Bandcamp. So he does this all himself. There's no label or anything involved.
All right. What's your next one?
So I'm going to go classic on this one because this just got released on vinyl. And it's. Do you know that one? Read the can. So Swerve Driver finally got 99th Dream pressed to vinyl. And so I felt the need to pick it up because this is the last one that I didn't have of their records. And so I had the CD that was on 0 Hour, came out in the late 90s. And the reason that I wanted to show this one in particular, this was one of the best concerts that I ever went to was when they toured this. They had just been dropped from the record label. And so they were doing a tour of Southern Ontario with the help of Sonic Unyon, who were kind of like big indie Canadian label back then. And so they came to Kitchener Waterloo, which is a university town. Like no band like this would be playing Kitchener Waterloo. It made no sense. And so we went to check them out, and there was like maybe 20 of us at the concert. And there was a couple that drove in from Detroit because they're like, yeah, we had to come into Canada to see them because they're only touring Southern Ontario and doing these university towns. I think because they'd been dropped from their label and they were sort of doing what they could. And it was one of the loudest, most deafening shows I've ever been to because it was literally a stage at a bar, like in a pub. And so you just and they set it up to be I was like, "Is there blood?" Like, it was so incredibly, incredibly loud and incredible. Just one of the coolest shows I've been to, and it was for this record. Um, so had to represent that.
All right, next one.
So this one is kind of a tip of the cap to somebody who just passed away, who people have been talking about on social media because young young fella, and he did some really cool stuff. And so I picked my favorite record by the Soft Moon. And so Zeros was my introduction to the Soft Moon. It's from like 2012, captured tracks, and it is such a good record. And I saw him touring this. I think I saw him 3 times in concert, and every time really engaging persona, layers of sound, really intense, sort of that goth post punk industrial mixed with some shoegaze and some dream pop elements as well. That really, really great artist, and really sad to hear that he passed away.
Yeah, but can you explain to the listeners, the audience, what is it about Soft Moon that you really appreciate?
Well, at that point, because 2012, um, the shoegaze re-wave coming back again wasn't really happening the way it is now. And so I was branching off into a lot of other realms, and the industrial sound of his drums in this in particular kind of grabbed me. There was a darkness to this that blended sort of like IDM, dark wave. It had a really cool, cold substance to it that really drew me in. It's such a cool record. You listen to it and you just feel, you feel like you should be dressed in all black, and you feel like cooler just by being in the presence of this record. And I really dug that. And so it's got all of those things. Like I said, it's got such a melange, but it had a little bit of dreaminess to it that is what sucked me in initially. But then I stayed for the industrial, the goth, the post punk to go along, and just the machine sounds that he has in here are phenomenal. Really cool stuff.
Nobody saw that one. I don't know. All right.
So I'm going to go back in time a little bit here. Do you remember the Bliss Out series that Darla used to do? And so Darla Records, do you remember? Well, I think Darla was actually from San Francisco, no? Like the actual. Okay, I'll look it up afterwards, but uh, I'm pretty sure Darla was a West Coast label at least. And they did some really cool stuff and had some good indie bands. And they did these Bliss Out records. And I don't know how high they got. This is volume 11 of Bliss Out. But they would take artists that maybe weren't always necessarily ambient, and they would do a more ambient style record. So like this band, this is my favorite album by them. So this is Sweet Tip. Halaka is the name of the record, and it's Bliss Out Volume 11, and it's for Darla Records. And so this Sweet Trip was, and it's funny because they're recognized as kind of like electronic shoegaze in a lot of circles. And this record, they had these really long, expansive songs that had beats to them, but the layering. So remember how I picked this because you remember how you talked about Slow Dive when we met, and that EP, the 5 EP, in terms of like the electronic music. You should check this out. And so this to me, if you enjoy that kind of dreamy, expansive electronic music, this record is incredible. They do some guitars here and there very lightly to add like layering to it, but otherwise it's very much an electronic ambient record that grabs you and pulls you in. Um,
Yeah. Um, good stuff. All right, what's your next one?
so because of the whole Bliss Out, this band did a Bliss Out that I don't have on vinyl, and so I picked my favorite album of theirs, Otherwise, that I thought needed some bigging up. And so, do you know this record? Cover's pretty awesome, yeah. So this is Piano Magic. Do you know Piano Magic? Yeah. And so this is I this is my favorite album by them. It's like Low Birth Weight, yeah. So what's the title? So this one's called Low Birth Weight, and it's from the late 90s. And Piano Magic also did a Bliss Out album that's really good that I only have on CD. And just a really cool dream pop band. And so they don't have that swirling shoegaziness, but they make really interesting dream pop that has a little bit of a goth tinge to it sometimes. And I wanted to represent. There's a song called Snowfall Soon that's on this record. That's one of my favorite songs ever. It starts off the record. It's such a cool, cool song. There's a really ambient beginning to it and a beat that comes in and it just builds and builds and is amazing. Also had the chance to see them in London when I lived in London. They put on a really, really good live show. So back in 2006, 2007, I caught them, and such a cool group. And you could tell they're just part of the community. They were chatting with everybody, just having a good time playing their show. And I feel like more people should know about Piano Magic. And so I wanted to put that forward.
Well, if anything, let me look. That record cover, that album cover, should grab people's attention. That's it. I feel like Do you remember going to record stores, or particularly mid '90s when CDs were all the rage, right? And you would go through all the stacks and stacks. And you go, oh, I'm just going to get this because of the album cover. That is an album I would have picked up. I'm like, I love that. I know nothing about this band, but I'll pick it up. And in fact, I want to know this band, if you've heard of them. They're on the Dedicated label. And I was in San Francisco, went through the dollar bin section. I'm like, oh, I really like this album cover. And the album is called Gravity. The band is called Balloon. 99 cents. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. It's got a track on there with Sarah McLachlan, who does backing vocals. It's an amazing song. And very few people have heard of this. And they were, like I said, on the Dedicated label. They only put out one album. Then they split. They're two gentlemen out of London. And yeah, it's one of those gems that you just, I mean, for 99 cents, who cares, right? But were you one of those where you actually rolled the dice and like, this looks kind of cool. I know nothing about it, but I'll buy it.
Yeah, of course I was. Well, the thing was, is I guess I'm kind of lying in a sense that I would look at the album like, this is really cool. And I'd flip it over and be like, what label is it on? Or do I recognize any of the names? So that was my entry point. And one, just to sort of match the one album criteria of what you just mentioned with Balloon, an album that I did that with was Swallow. So they had the one album, and the cover is kind of a weird. It looks like packed meat or something. It's really a strange looking album cover. And then I flipped it over, and I'm like, 4AD album cover like this. I'm gonna get this, yeah. And it's amazing. Really good album. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. All right. You have another one?
I got two left, so this is my second last one. And so I don't know if you heard about this one. It's from I think 2016. It's Helen. The Original Faces is the name of the album. It's Helen. This is a one album only band. It's Liz Harris, who you may know from Grouper. And so this was her doing shoegaze, like straight up shoegaze. And so it's actually like a lo-fi shoegaze album. So it's got lots of texture, lots of swirl, lots of rough edges to it, and buried deep within that are her vocals. And it's a really, really, really good record. I remember when this came out, all of the shoegaze heads were just like, "What is that?" And none of us realized that it was her initially. And then you looked at it like, "Wait a second, she's from Grouper." And so phenomenal, phenomenal record. Oh my gosh. So I've got one record left. And so I wanted to go for something completely different. And so I picked this. That'll never happen on this show. I'm sorry. So it's this. I don't know if you would recognize this or not. Mhm. No? Okay, so there's a picture of her right here. It's Riz Maslin, also known as Neotropic. And so this was from the sort of the mid 90s, late 90s electronic scene. And so this was on Endtone, which was a Ninja Tune side label that was more abstract electronic music. So it wasn't as groovy. It was more like in the Aphex Twin realm. This album is so it's so cool. She does she gathered a lot of field recordings, and so you hear sounds from around, and she mixes them with really, really, um, almost mechanized sounding beats that sound lo-fi, and it's catchy, it's got trip hoppy beats in it as well, and so I remember hearing for the first time being like, "What the F is this?" It was just really cool, really different, and again, it's one of those records that I look for. If somebody has this, I know that they were a really cool IDM kid back in the 90s.
Um, Speaking of concerts, I wanted to ask you this before we kind of wrap it up here. Are there any shows that you're going to looking forward to seeing in 2024?
Yes. And so my buddy Derek, who's like my one of my concert buddies, he got me into this band called Omni, that I don't know a whole lot about yet. That I'm trying to almost pump the brakes. I've listened to a couple of tracks. They're kind of cool. They're coming to Toronto, and so I grabbed a ticket. I think it's either I think it might be in February, and he said that I had to prepare myself because they were really interesting and just different. And he likened them to Palm, and I loved Palm, Palm. I loved them in concert. They broke up, but they were one of my favorite live acts from the past couple of years. They just did some really cool off time stuff. And he's like, "You'll like Omni then, because they do a lot of off kilter, off time, kind of wacky guitar indie stuff." So looking forward to that for sure. Other than that, I'm going to see. I told you before. I'm going to see Duster with Codeine as they do their tour. So I'm going with my buddy Sean to that. It's always nice because it's going to a concert, but it's also coming together with friends who they're like family, my concert going friends. And so we're gonna go check out Duster and Codeine with all the cool kids in Toronto, I'm sure. Because who wouldn't want to go to that? Any cool indie kids go to Codeine Duster. Yeah. Well, so there's a showcase that I've been very distantly helping with. And so my buddies who are in Fires of Cheektowaga, who are a Toronto-based band, they're doing a shoegaze showcase on March 30th, which is a Saturday at the Baby G. And so right now they're going to be playing. So Fires of Cheektowaga, along with Luster Dust, who are incredible. My buddy Daniel's band, Luster Dust. Got to check them out, along with the Neverminds, who are a cool up and coming, noisy, jangle shoegaze outfit from Toronto, and A Way Forward, they've got members from Mean Red Spiders, so they're kind of like jangle pop, dream pop royalty, in my opinion, in the Toronto scene. So we've got those four bands booked for a great, great night of music on March 30th. So if you're watching this and you're in Toronto and you want to hear some great stuff that's dream pop, jangle pop, shoegaze, all kind of rolled together, that night should be phenomenal. And I can't wait. I have a great time.
Hey Simon, this has been fantastic. I'm glad we're able to kickstart this Simon Says Vinyl show, episode number 9. Anyways, yeah, looking forward to our next show, and thanks again for doing all this and sharing your love and enthusiasm for obviously music and vinyl. And yeah, much appreciated. Always an educational experience with you, my friend.
So much fun. I love just doing this and hanging out and chatting. It fulfills my nerd battery. It's full now. So
Good stuff. All right, everyone. That was Simon Says Vinyl. Simon and Claire. Check them out on DKFM. Melomania Safety Zone. Great show. You're going to learn quite a bit. And it's just a wonderful community of music lovers coming together. My name is W, host of the High Art on the Edge page. We'll see you next month for Simon Says Vinyl number 10. Ciao.